that we just did we took our whole body and then we deflated it and then we sculpted through. And you wouldn't, if you knew exactly what you were doing, you wouldn't have to go through and sculpt this. You could just go through, and you could even do polypaint really, but I kind of wanted to get a feel for how this was going to look on her. So at this point, what I would do, and I'm just going to do this little neck part here, is I would go through here and I would mask it out just to kind of separate it along those seam lines. And you don't have to be that careful. You can do Control-Alt to sharpen it up, and then Control-Alt to paint it out a little bit. You can Control-Tap to invert it. Sometimes that'll help you see exactly where you want to put that line. It doesn't have to be that careful because we're just going to rebuild this thing anyway. And then we can invert that. We'll hit Control-W to put a poly group right there. We can Control-Shift to isolate it. We'll do a quick split hidden. And now we have this thing available to us. Now at this point, if you wanted to use, excuse me, ZRemesher, what I would do is clean up those aliased edges on the side here. So I'm going to go over here to Masking, Mask the border, Control-Tap to invert that. All dry. And then I'm going to go over here to Polish by Features, Open Circle, and that's in your deformation menu. And now we've got those nice clean circles. Now I'm also going to slice this thing. Control-Shift, go in here to Slice Curve, and that'll just allow us to slice right through. Now slice isn't going to happen across symmetry, but that's okay. We'll just mirror and weld it. So we're just going to slice right through where we want it, like so. And if you need to, you can tap Alt once if you want to kind of bend it a little bit. And we'll put one more right here. There we go. So this side's good, this side's gross. I'm going to do a quick mirror, deformations mirror, and then a geometry, modified topology, mirror and weld. And now we got this. Now, you're going to see there's a crease line right in the middle. You can do alternating polygroups here, but I'm going to do that. Excuse me. I'll do that later. So what I'm going to do now is ZRemesh this thing. So I'm going to go to Geometry, ZRemesher, and I'm going to keep groups on. Now if I do keep groups and I keep smooth groups up at 1, what's going to do is it'll keep my groups, but it's going to want to smooth these polygroups. In this case it's not terrible, but generally speaking I usually just put that down at 0. The polygon count isn't that bad. It's at 3,000. I'm going to put it at half and do adaptive size down to a smaller number, let's say 8. I want nice even quads, but it can kind of follow the surface undulation. Then I can just keep hitting half, and it'll just keep giving me new geometry. And if you hold down Alt, it'll give you a new algorithm to do a new center line. Basically what I want is something like this. Now you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. You can keep it at this gross geometry, and what we're going to end up doing is going over here to, what am I looking for here? Edge loop. We're going to end up doing panel loops. So we do panel loops here. Ooh, gross. Let's do a thickness of 0.002. There we go. And we can also change the bevel size here to make the bevels more or less. All sorts of things. Now, the problem is when we do panel loops here, we're still getting that kind of gross geometry in here, which if you're just doing panel loops, when you go to smooth the thing, it'll probably be fine. It's not a huge deal. But just because it's not that difficult to do, I am going to go through the ZRemesher just to make it a little bit nicer. So we'll do ZRemesh half, ZRemesh half, ZRemesh half. There we go. Actually, let's go back up one. Hold down Alt. That'll work. And that'll just keep our groups here, and then the geometry will be a little bit nicer. So now what I'm going to do is, if we were to go up here to do panel loops now, it's a pretty nice result, but we're losing that midline. So what we can do is I can grab, and I had X symmetry turned on. So if I go over here and I just grab, oops, turn off X symmetry just by tapping X. And I'm going to do, actually, you know what? This will be different. This will be different. I'm going to grab this one, get rid of that, hit Control W, and that'll polygroup that one. Same thing for this one. Control Shift, hold down Alt, Control W, grab this one, hold down Alt, Control W, and then this one, we'll leave that alone because it won't need a midline. Actually, it might look a little bit weird if we don't, so we'll do this. Control W. So now we have alternating polygroups, so when we do a panel loops now, whoops, not a ZRemesher, a panel loops, it'll go ahead and put that midline there for us. Now one thing we're doing is we have panel loops with double turned on, which means we can do Control Shift click and then Control Shift A, and that means it's double sided. We have 5 loops turned on, which means we have, when we do a panel loop, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way across. If we go into the bevel profile, you're going to see it goes up, over, and down. If we look at the profile of our bevel, it goes up, over, and down. And you're also going to see it almost touches that midline. And what that means is we wouldn't look at 2 panels next to each other. See how it's barely not touching? That means that midline is where it would touch. So if I undo that, all the way back here, and we move these little dots up to that midline, and then we do panel loops again, you're going to see now they touch. That is the midline of the panel. Now if we overshoot that and we like put it up here, then of course these panel lines are going to overlap. So just keep in mind that midline is where those panels are going to end up touching. Now, if you wanted to do something fancy, like you can just click in here and drag, and that'll give you a new shape. And if you ever wanted to, if you click and drag off, it'll just delete it. If you click and just make a new one, you have a circle that you can change and make it more or less round. If you want to make it sharp, just drag it off and drag it back on, and then it'll be pointy. So you can go through here and make whatever profile shape you want. You can get as crazy as you want to on these things. Now the problem is you only have 5 loops to do it, and at least that's what I have. So if I do panel loops here, and we do Control Shift A, let's see. There we go. So we'll do Control Shift A. You're going to see it's trying to make the crazy shape we have, but it doesn't have enough resolution. If we go back, where's all my stuff at? There we go. If we go back here and we say, you know what, use like 18 loops. Now we can go to panel loops, and now you can see Control Shift A. It's actually matching, 1, 2, 3 spikes, and this is a taller one, this is a shorter one, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and reset this, and then I'll pull these up here, and we'll just leave it. We'll make this one sharp, drag it on, drag it off. There's the midline, 1, 2, 3, 4, here and here, something like that. So this is our bevel profile. We'll just leave it at that. But you do have the opportunity to make those as crazy as you like, but, plan accordingly with how many loops you have. Another thing we're doing is we have double on. So when you do panel loops, we have double-sided, and each one of these things is its own separate mesh. That works fine until you subdivide it, and it's going to leave big gaps back behind, which is okay if you have like a sheet behind it. But if I don't, one thing I can do is I can go in here, go into my Z modeler brush, BZM, hover over a face, hit spacebar. We're in a cube mesh, not polygroup all, but all polygons. We're just going to pull that back, and when we do that, that inverts our normal. So we got to go all the way down here, display properties, flip, and now we have these polygons and then this back face. So I can do Control Shift click this back face, Control Shift S. Wait, S? No, that's shrink. Control Shift X, which is visibility expand, Control Shift drag to invert that. And now with just these visible, I can go over here and do a panel loops. Now if I just do a panel loops with double on, it's going to do a panel loops, and it's going to leave my back faces here. And if I Control Shift click this, you're going to see that's all we have on this back piece here, which doesn't really help us. It leaves big gaps here. So what I'm going to do, there's 2 things you can do really. You can have this visible, and you can turn double off, and then you can do panel loops. And now when we hit D to subdivide, you'll see it makes it all one solid piece. It puts it with the original thing. And if you go in here and smooth, it's like leather cushions. It's like little pads on top of that thing there. Another option you can do, and that's what I'm probably going to end up doing, but another option you can do is you can turn double off, and you can do you can turn double on or off, doesn't really matter. We'll turn double on and we'll do append. And when we do that, what that's going to do, it's going to leave our original mesh as is. So if I do Control Shift and Control Shift A, here's our original object here. If we invert that, it also added our double-sided panel loops. So that's another option you can do. You can leave your original behind and just append your new shapes to it. And I think there's one more thing you can do that I was thinking of. You can loops, you can double, you can append. Oh, you can regroup loops or panels. If you regroup panels and you do append, and the reason why you would regroup panels when you do append, if you don't regroup panels, and we do panel loops and we hit append and then we drag those, if you do Control Shift and click this polygroup, its original polygroup is going to be the exact same thing. So one way to avoid that is to do the regroup panels, and then when you do panel loops, these are going to be a separate polygroup. You can do Control Shift A, and then they'll be all one piece. So you can actually go through here and you can split those off. You do Control Shift A, and you'll get the single piece there. Whew! All that talk for what I'm basically going to do is I'm not going to append. I'm going to do double, I think, and loops is fine. Our thickness is a little bit thin. I'm going to do 0.00. 3.5 maybe. I'm not going to regroup. I'm just going to panel loops. Oh, and I am not going to do double. There we go. So now when I hit D, I've got a little bit of thickness here to protect so I can't see through, and then it gives the illusion like I've got this nice ribbed paneling there. Now that was the ZRemesh method. So what I actually ended up doing, let's go ahead and delete that. So we go back here, and let's take another example here. Saving. I have a bunch of stuff open, so this is quick save. Going to take a minute. You can also try and I broke this thing off here. Let's go ahead and delete all these. I'll go to a newer one here. Let's go out of solo mode here, and we'll grab this one. Actually, let's grab, I want the back. There we go, this will be a good one. So now with this thing here, you can go through and start slicing this thing. It would basically just be a matter of showing just small portions of it at a time, and then just going through here and doing slice curve. And you can try ZRemeshing this. I didn't have very great success because by the time I got done, and the reason I'm hiding this stuff is so that when it slices up here, it doesn't accidentally slice through. So it's just based on visibility. You can just grab these pieces, slice them all up, and then invert your selection and just show these things and slice them all up, and you're pretty safe. The problem is when you start getting into shapes like these really tight triangles, and then it has a hard time. And to be fair, it's trying to give you nice even topology, and of course it's not going to get it right exactly. So in this case, what I ended up doing was just for all of these, the rest of them, I went in here to insert ZSphere, and then I just showed that one, showed this one. Let's go out of solo mode here. I'm going to turn on double display properties, double, just so I can see both sides while I'm working on this thing. And then I got a ZSphere here, so I'm going to hit X to go across X symmetry. E, W, you can just move it up out of the way. Doesn't even necessarily have to be inside the object, it just has to be kind of out of the way. And in fact, this one might be kind of a pain, but that's okay. I like to go to Matte Cap Pearl and then drop it down to a medium gray. And then, go into your settings down here for adaptive skin and topology. I'm going to use my custom menu here. Density of 1. Edit topology is on, and then it's just a simple matter of just going through here and 1, 2, 3, and I have X turned on, so it's doing both sides. You don't have to do that. And then just going through here and doing a basic retopologize. And obviously I'm not going to retopologize it again. I'll go to a newer version, and you can hit A. There's your adaptive skin here. And then let's go ahead, let's make the adaptive skin. And we'll go ahead and insert it. Here's a pro tip. Not really. I'm not much of a pro. But the ZSphere here that we're using to retopologize this, say we retopologize this whole thing, what I'll do is I'll go down 1, I'll go down 2, and then I'll hide everything, bring the ZSphere back, bring my new topology I want to start retopologizing from, go into ZSphere, delete topology, make sure I'm in draw mode, and now I can immediately start topologizing this thing. So I recycle ZSpheres like crazy because there's no point in deleting a ZSphere, appending a ZSphere. Just delete the topology and then just keep working. Just keep moving it down, hiding what you need to show, showing what you need to show, and retopologizing. Boom, 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 boom. And it, it's kind of tedious, but retopologizing all this stuff took me, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to retopologize our entire tech suit. So again, like I said, it's tedious work, but not impossible work. So these were all retopologized here, and now it's a simple matter of, I can just do one side here. So I'm going to hit X. Let's turn off double and see. Okay, now this is a good example. When I retopologize this one, it has this side flipped and this side not flipped, and by default, when you do your adaptive skin, it's going to turn double on. So you might go in here and go let's inflate it, and it's going to inflate one side and deflate the other. All that is you go to display properties at the very bottom here, turn off double, and you're going to realize, oh, that one's flipped. So just show that one, turn off X, Control Shift to get visibility on this one, and then just flip it under display properties, and then you're good to go. In this case, I don't even need it because I can always mirror and weld later. So I'll delete hidden on that one, and then we're going to go out of solo mode. I'm going to go into transparency mode, and you can turn ghost on or off if it helps you any. And then it was just a matter of going in here and looking at my sculpt and my topology and going, okay, Alt drag, and then hover over a face, poly group, a single poly, tap, tap Alt, and then I'm off to the races. Tap, tap Alt, and then just holding down Alt to drag. You know, alt painting's a little bit faster. You don't have to. You can go in here and go like, okay, poly group, a single poly, boop, boop, boop. Or you want to actually hold down alt and get a new poly group here. And even if you mess up, like if you go, oops, that's supposed to be purple, just poly group a single poly, tap, hold down, tap shift, and that'll inherit that poly group, and then just tap, and you can just copy that over. But it's a little faster to just alt paint this really quickly, and then tap, and then alt, just to kind of getting these different poly groups going. And then, of course, once I get the different poly groups going, voila, you do panel loops, and you're pretty much done.